Welcome everyone to Law&Crime Daily. I'm your host, Brian Buckmeyer. Victims were injured at the Waukesha Christmas parade begin to testify in the trial of Darrell Brooks. Brooks is representing himself as he stands trial for killing 6 people and injuring dozens more. Law&Crime's Anjanette Levy has the testimony from Wisconsin.
She was lying in the middle of the road, and there were some people around her trying to help her.
Kelly Grabo recalled seeing her daughter Adelia laying in the street after being hit by the red SUV. Adelia had been handing out candy. Grabo described hearing a different sound behind them before they were hit.
I noticed there was a difference in the sound behind us than what I was hearing throughout. So right as she walked off to the side and I seen she walked to the side, I turned. I don't know if I turned fully or just in my head. And as I turned, all I seen was the hood of a red vehicle. And I hit the red vehicle and rolled down to the side and landed directly between the Burris Logistics.
Darrell Brooks cross-examines each witness that he is charged with injuring. He has declared himself a third-party intervener as he represents himself.
Do you recall seeing a driver?
No, I seen the red hood of the vehicle. That's all I seen.
So you didn't see the driver or anybody in the vehicle?
No.
Brooks's questions appear to suggest he can't be identified as the driver by some witnesses. He's also asked many people whether or not they heard a horn.
So when you looked back, you said you heard screaming, you heard yelling and running. Did you hear a horn honking?
I did not.
Joshua Craner testified to being hit by the SUV.
I was struck by the vehicle.
Where did the vehicle strike you?
I don't remember.
Okay. Did you receive injuries as a result of the vehicle striking you?
Yes.
And what were those injuries?
I couldn't walk.
Brooks has tried to raise doubts through his cross-examinations about who was driving the red SUV.
So it would be fair to say that at no time during the incident you saw the driver?
No, I did not.
Darrell Brooks has declared himself a sovereign citizen, and he wants the case against him dismissed, saying the court does not have jurisdiction. But Judge Jennifer Doro has denied that request. In Waukesha, Wisconsin, I'm Anjanette Levy for Law&Crime Daily.
Thanks, Anjanette. Joining us today is criminal defense attorney Taylor Koss and co-host Terry Austin. Taylor, Brooks keeps asking and the judge keeps shutting him down, but is there a plaintiff in this case, and does it matter?
Thanks for having me, guys. A pleasure to be here. So typically speaking, in a criminal matter, the parties are going to be the prosecution and the defendant, the state versus the defendant, the government versus the defendant. You very rarely, if ever, hear that there's a plaintiff. That is just not a term used in criminal law. However, earlier in one of the pretrial proceedings, the judge actually said on the record when talking to the defendant, do you understand that the state of Wisconsin is the plaintiff in this matter? And that stuck in his head. He's glommed onto that now because, as you know, we've all known, he is claiming he is a sovereign citizen of the United States, that while the U.S. Constitution applies to him, the Wisconsin Constitution does not apply to him. So he keeps trying to associate the state of Wisconsin with being the plaintiff for future jurisdiction arguments. It has absolutely no merit, but that's why he's doing it, and he's trying everything. It's cuckoo, but it's what's going on.
Yeah, a lot of Cocoa Puffs in there, as you say, cuckoo. Well, Terry, there are times that Brooks actually seems prepared. Do you think he's getting some sort of legal advice from somewhere or someone?
Oh, I definitely think he's getting some jailhouse advice while he is behind bars. He's also watching the prosecution. He's learned some of the phrases and some of the key behaviors of the prosecution. Like when he objects, I've noticed a couple of phrases like he was prepared for it. Whenever the state objects, he always says what grounds, and he doesn't even give the prosecutor an opportunity to finish her sentence. I think someone told him, you have the right to say what grounds are you objecting on. And if you notice, he's also using certain phrases. So he says, is it fair to say? And he's saying, let me just clarify for the record. These are things that he's heard people talking about.
Yeah, grounds. He's trying to build some sort of an appeal. We'll see what he does as the case continues. Well, still ahead on Law&Crime Daily, we continue our coverage of the Waukesha Parade Crash Massacre. A parade crash witness breaks down on the stand why the defendant is later called out for his commentary. Welcome back. We continue our coverage in the trial of Wisconsin versus Darrell Brooks. On Tuesday, prosecutors called for Brooks to stop making comments under his breath after a witness became emotional on the stand.
And we can take that down now. Thank you. So, Ms. Kajewski, well, let me just clarify. What did we see at the end of that video? You can take some time.
A car going through the parade.
Is the video, who even took the video? Is it relevant?
Sir, it's not an objection, it's a statement. You can ask questions later.
Not even a witness that took.
Go ahead.
So, Judge, before we begin, I have to step in here and request that Mr. Brooks be instructed to stop making comments under his breath. This witness is very clearly having an emotional and difficult time testifying, and she doesn't need to hear that.
Objection, she can't hear anything I'm saying.
Mr. Brooks, the mics are very good in this courtroom, so please refrain.
Terry, these victims have the patience of a saint as they're being cross-examined by Brooks, especially when they're asked if they ID'd the driver after a loved one was hurt. How do you think the jury is reacting to that?
Oh, you know, that jury is looking at him as though he's arrogant and condescending, because you know why? He is arrogant and condescending. He is really being very difficult, and it's going to hurt his case. I definitely think that he's been rude to all of the witnesses, the officers who were on before the family and victims came on, and his ex-girlfriend. He needs to be respectful, as the judge has said many times, to everyone in that courtroom. And when have a witness who's been injured or whose family member has been injured, you especially have to show deference. That jury is looking at him, and they will absolutely hold it against him, even if they felt sorry for him because he doesn't know his way around the courtroom. It's definitely going to hurt him.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of sympathy is going Brooks' way. But Taylor, from what Brooks is asking, can you take an educated guess as to what his summation would look like, and will it help with any of these charges?
Well, first of all, I think it's fair to say that the summation is going to be as close to a three-ring circus as humanly possible. But, you know, if we can hone in on something, the common thread from what I've seen and what he's trying to get from the witnesses during his cross-examination is that they didn't see him driving the car. They can't describe him. They can't describe features of him driving the car, at least some of the witnesses. So it's fair to assume he's going to argue some sort of identification issues. Additionally, he's brought up this issue of, did you hear a honking horn? Did you hear a honking horn? Perhaps if identification is acknowledged, perhaps he's going to say, you know, he tried to notify people there was a honking horn. Everybody should have known to get out of the way. Either way, don't think he's going to be successful on any of these, the identification particularly, but, you know, the fact that they didn't see him, so to speak, driving the car, something he's gotten his hooks into and likely to repeat on end during his summation.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I'm curious. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but we'll answer it another day. Can he be both or all three, defendant, witness, and lawyer? Maybe he'll take the stand himself. We'll see how that plays out. Another ring to that circus you were talking about. Well, switching now to another highly publicized case, as Anad Syed is officially exonerated in the murder of Haymon Lee. Prosecutors in Maryland dropped all charges on Tuesday. Syed's case rose to fame in 2014 when the podcast Serial broke listening records. The investigative series cast doubt on Syed's 2000 conviction for the murder of his ex-girlfriend, 18-year-old Haymon Lee. Since he was arrested back in 1999, Syed has maintained his innocence. He spent more than 20 years behind bars. In September, a Maryland judge ruled to vacate Syed's conviction, saying state evidence in the original investigation wasn't handed over to the defense, and that 2 murder suspects were cleared that should not have been. Syed was then released. The prosecution was then given 30 days to decide whether to retry Syed or drop the charges. On Tuesday, prosecutors announced DNA evidence excluded Syed as a suspect. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, after weeks of testimony, closing arguments are presented in the Parkland school shooter penalty phase trial. Plus, why the Church of Scientology is in the spotlight as actor Danny Masterson faces charges of rape in California.